morning to everyone. We're going to get started now. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote council session. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council is currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make this remote meeting possible. So instructions for how the public may view the meeting and offer public comment are included in the stated meeting notice that was published in the Daily News, Enquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the meeting, and can also be found on phl.com. I now note that the hour has come. The clerk will please call a roll to take attendance. Members that are in attendance, please indicate that you are present, or whatever you may choose, to ensure that your image is displayed on the screen. Mr. Decker, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bath.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues in Philadelphia. I am present.
Good morning.
Morning.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Good morning, everyone. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilman Dobb.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues, and Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gauthier.
Good morning, Council President, colleagues in Philadelphia. Present.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to the city of sisterly love.
Good morning.
Councilman Green.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, staff. Good morning, City of Philadelphia. And I also want to say a good morning to our guest pastor this morning, Reverend Dr. Kevin Johnson of Dare to Imagine Church. Give this morning's invocation.
Thank you. Good morning.
Councilwoman Gim.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilman Heenan.
Good morning, Council President, and good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman Johnson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Calling for prayers for all the family members who has lost their loved ones to gun violence.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Councilman Jones.
Hi.
Next.
Councilman O.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Good morning.
Councilman O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Parker.
Good morning, Mr. President and colleagues. Councilman Johnson Square looked a little brighter for a few minutes there.
Good morning. Absolutely.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Good morning, buenos dias, Council President Clark and colleagues.
Good morning, Councilwoman.
Construction phase of PA.
Present.
Hold on.
Councilman Squilla.
Good morning, Council.
Somebody needs to mute their mic. We have some other activity going on. Go ahead, Mr. Decker.
Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the listening public.
Good morning.
Council President Clark.
And good morning to everyone. Thank you very much. We have clearly established a quorum, so we will now have our invocation. And to give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Pastor Kevin Johnson of Dare to Imagine Church. He is here today as the guest of Councilman Green. I would ask all members and guests to please bow your head for the invocation. Pastor, please proceed.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilman Green. Let us pray. Lord, we come this morning because we know that Philadelphia is the birthplace of hope. While many have raised the white flag to surrender, we still have hope. For we know that it was hope that gave birth to this nation. It was hope that inspired Crispus Attucks, the first one to die in the American Revolution, our first martyr. It was hope that persuaded Thomas Jefferson to write in the Constitution that all men, and I would say women, are created equal. Yes, it was hope that led President Abraham Lincoln to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. And it was hope that gave Mahalia Jackson her song and Thurgood Marshall his victory. As we come this Memorial Day weekend, we still hold on to hope And we pray that this hope permeates the streets of Philadelphia so that gun violence may cease. And we also pray that this hope finds its way to the Holy Lands in Israel and Palestine. We ask now, O God, that you help us to forever keep drinking from the fountain of hope, for it is in hope that we have peace, it is in hope that we have love, and it is in hope that we have unity. This is our prayer today, Creator. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor, for your invocation and your spiritual guidance this morning. We truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, May 20th, 2021. And the chair recognizes Councilman Spillo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, May 20th, 2021 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and probably second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, May 20th, 2021 stand approved. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Ayes have it, and the journal is approved. And our next order of business is request for leave of absence, and the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are no requests for leave of absence today.
Chair, thanks to Councilwoman. And our next order of business is communications. Mr. Decker, will you please read the messages from the mayor and any other communications that you may have in your possession?
Yes, Mr. President. From the mayor to the president and members of the council of the city of Philadelphia. Pursuant to sections 4604 and 2307 of the Home Rule Charter, I am today transmitting to the council the recommendation of the City Planning Commission on the following bills. Bill numbers 200627, 210282, 210362, 210363, 210394, 210420, 210425, and 210418. And I am pleased to advise you that on May 27, 2021, I signed all of the bills which were passed by council at its session on May 13, 2021 and May 20, 2021. And I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution reappointing Jeffrey B. Goldstone to the Board of Directors of the City Avenue Special Services District, and a resolution approving the appointment of William McCullough to the Philadelphia Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Rate Board, and a resolution approving the reappointment of Abby Pozevsky to the Philadelphia Water, Sewer, and Stormwater Rate Board, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1740 South Howard Street located in the 1st Councilmanic District, and a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to certain city-owned lots or pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situated in the 3rd Councilmanic District of the city, and further authorizing the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority to transfer to the Philadelphia Land Bank fee simple title to such properties, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2216 North 3rd Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District, and a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1905 North Phillip Street and 1909 North Lawrence Street, located in the 7th Councilmanic District, and an ordinance authorizing the Procurement Commissioner and the Chief Executive Officer of Philadelphia International Airport on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into an amendment to a concession agreement for the management of the food, beverage, retail, and passenger services program at Philadelphia International Airport, and an ordinance amending Chapter 9208 of Title IX of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Cafes to revise standards and requirements associated with sidewalk cafes, and an ordinance amending Chapter 9200 of Title IX of the Philadelphia Code entitled Commercial Activities on Streets to add a new section entitled Streeteries to allow for expansion of business uses, including outdoor dining at certain curbside parking locations, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Decker. Our next order of business is the introduction of bills and resolutions. By way of a reminder, we are asking that all resolutions, including privilege resolutions, be placed on the final passage calendar for the next session of council, unless they are being referred to committee. In our current remote environment, this procedure will provide an appropriate opportunity for public comment. I want to thank you very much for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, can you please read the titles of the legislation that's being offered today by its members?
Yes, Mr. President. Councilwoman Parker offers 3 bills and 3 resolutions. On behalf of Council President Clark, Councilwoman Parker offers an ordinance amending Section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Designation of Bicycle Lanes to authorize a bicycle lane on North 13th Street from Spring Garden Street to Green Street. On her own behalf, Councilwoman Parker offers an ordinance amending Section 13101 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Fixing and Regulating Rates and Charges to extend the prevailing wage provisions of the code that apply in connection with the receipt of charity water rates and make technical changes. And an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to revise provisions related to the manner of selection from eligible lists for vacancies and promotions in the civil service system as approved by resolution of the City Council. That's it for the bills, Mr. President.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's it for the bills.
Yeah, hold on 1 second. Did Councilwoman Gauthier, did you need to be recognized at this point?
Yes, if that's okay, Council President.
Yes, please.
I had to leave the meeting, but I wanted to be recognized as voting yes on all bills and resolutions, most especially Councilmember Jones's bill creating the new Citizens Police Oversight Commission.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you so much.
These shall be granted, and the record shall reflect on your votes on all bills and resolutions. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Jones.
I just want to be recorded as present and thank the gentlelady from the 3rd District for her vote.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Decker, please proceed.
That's it for the bills, Mr. President. They'll be referred to the appropriate committee.
They will be referred to the appropriate committee.
Councilwoman Parker offers, on behalf of Council President Clark, a resolution approving the redevelopment contract of the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority for the redevelopment and urban renewal of a portion of the model city's urban renewal area, identified by house number and street address as 1221 through 1225 North 4th Street. On her own behalf, Councilwoman Parker offers a resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly to appropriate the full $350 million from the Federal Homeowner Assistance Fund as soon as possible without imposing additional restrictions. And a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to revise provisions related to the manner of selection from eligible lists for vacancies and promotions in the civil service system, and providing for the submission of the amendment to the electors of Philadelphia. Council President Clark, Councilwoman Parker would like to be recognized on this resolution.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, today, along with 10 members of City Council, specifically Council members Jamie Gaultier, Jones, Heenan, Sanchez, Bass, Brooks, Dom, Gilmore, Richardson, Green, and Gim. I am honored to be introducing legislation that will increase diversity in municipal hiring by changing the city charter to eliminate the rule of 2. For those of you who may not know, under current law, when filling single position vacancies for civil service jobs, only the 2 highest ranking candidates on the eligible list are submitted to the requesting department for an interview. The department then selects one of the 2 candidates to fill the position. The elimination of the rule of 2 will give the city significantly more flexibility to address recruitment and diversity challenges, and will have 2 major impacts on the city's recruitment and selection process. First, it will increase the diversity of candidate pools. Second, it will allow the city to leverage the use of alternate selection tools like training and experience, as opposed to traditional pen and paper, aka standardized tests and assessments. This legislative change is a long time coming. As some of you may remember, our former colleague, Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown, introduced a resolution authorizing Philadelphia City Council's Committee on Labor and Civil Service to conduct public hearings to examine Philadelphia's civil service rule of two. That resolution she introduced was co-sponsored by myself along with Council members Sanchez and Gim. Part of Councilwoman Reynolds Brown's inspiration to introduce the resolution was a September 2015 article in the Inquirer by Tom Ferrick. And in this article, he wrote that if Philadelphia's leadership wanted to get serious about having a city workforce that reflects the city, those leaders were going to have to tackle what is called the rule of two. Farrick's article, it went on to detail how our local government workforce, it doesn't reflect the city of today. He wrote, and I quote, "Blacks, Latinos, and Asians are underrepresented when it comes to local government jobs. Women of all races and ethnic origins are as well." His analysis, Mr. President, found that for the 4,000 plus city employees who earn $70,000 a year or more, 64% of them were white and 72% were male. And for the 4,000 or so city employees who earned $35,000 a year or less, 67% were Black and 55% were male. Farrick went on to say that he found that the average salary of a white worker, at that time it was $60,107, that it was about $10,642 more than the average salary for a Black employee, which at that time earned $49,465. He also cited examples such as a police commissioner, for instance, may want to hire someone who speaks Mandarin for the police force. But if that applicant isn't among the top 2 scorers, he is or she is out of the running. And he also pointed out the obvious, that when it comes to promotions, because the pipeline is usually filled with white males in many of the departments, the odds favor them taking the next step up that ladder. And I don't have to tell my colleagues that we know that not much has changed since 2015. Since becoming a council person in 2016 and chair of the Labor and Civil Service Committee, I have heard confidentially from numerous city employees, almost all of whom are employees of color, who feel they have been disadvantaged by the current system. These include employees in Parks and Recreation, the Water Department, the Fire Department, and the Police Department, among others. I am of the firm belief that it is one thing for an employer to say that Black Lives Matter, and an entirely different thing for an employer to make real, substantive changes that ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our municipal government is one of the largest employers in the city of Philadelphia. And for too long, the rule of two has held back Black and brown employees, either from obtaining the entry-level job or from getting that promotion to move up the ranks. Now, for the record, this legislation is by no means a silver bullet to making our city's workforce, and particularly our city's upper management, more reflective of Philadelphia's demographics, but it is a necessary and important step. In 2017, when compared to 35 other peer cities, it was found that no other municipality adhered to a rule of two. All had more expansive rules, like a rule of 5 or a rule of 10, and then approximately 20% of them use what we call a varying rule. And that, Mr. President, is what this legislation proposes. I want to thank you, Mr. President, along with the administration, for working with me and caring about this issue in such a cooperative manner. I also want to thank the Pew Charitable Research and the Committee of 70 for their fair research and nonpartisan analysis of this issue. My goal is for this legislation to be heard and hopefully passed by June 24th. And then it will go on the November 2021 ballot as a ballot question for all residents of the city of Philadelphia to weigh in on. And I thank you, Mr. President, for your time, and colleagues, thank you all for the leeway.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That resolution will be referred to committee. Oh, I think I already did that. I'm sorry. Oh, I forgot where it was.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers one bill and one resolution entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 10-300, entitled Minors, to revise the evening curfew hours, modify the provisions for enforcement and penalties, and make technical changes.
For the committee.
And a resolution recognizing June as African American Music Appreciation Month to celebrate the African American musical influences that comprise an essential part of our nation's treasured cultural heritage.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Gim offers one resolution entitled a resolution calling upon the Pennsylvania General Assembly to end the unconstitutional race and wealth disparities in school funding and to fully, adequately, and fairly fund its schools in Philadelphia and across the Commonwealth by utilizing the state's fair funding formula as the basis of all K through 12 education funding and providing adequate recurring state funding.
Next, Councilman.
Councilman Jones offers one bill and one resolution entitled an ordinance authorizing the revision of lines and grades on a portion of City Plan Number 167 within the area bounded by 67th Street, Vine Street, 69th Street, and Haverford Avenue by striking portions of certain streets from the city plan, vacating portions of certain streets from the city plan, and reserving and placing on the city plan multiple rights of way.
For the committee.
And a resolution reappointing Jeffrey B. Goldstone to the Board of Directors of the City Avenue Special Services District.
On next week's calendar.
Councilman Johnson offers two bills and one resolution. On behalf of Council President Clark, Councilman Johnson offers an ordinance authorizing the Procurement Commissioner and the Chief Executive Officer of Philadelphia International Airport on behalf of the city to enter into an amendment to a concession agreement for the management of the food, beverage, retail, and passenger services program at Philadelphia International Airport.
For the committee.
On his own behalf, Councilman Johnson offers an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Elmwood Avenue and 70th Street.
Committee.
And a resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly to adopt Senate Bill 670 and House Bill 696, which will provide $30 million in funding for community-based violence intervention.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez offers four resolutions entitled a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 7th Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority deeds conveying fee simple title to certain city-owned lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situated in the 7th Councilmanic District. And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 2216 North 3rd Street located in the 7th Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1905 North Phillip Street and 1909 North Lawrence Street located in the 7th Councilmanic District.
Calendar.
Councilman Green offers three bills and four resolutions. Entitled an ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the city of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to provide for a mandatory appropriation for the Housing Trust Fund as approved by a resolution of the City Council.
Go ahead, Mr. Cook.
Did Councilman Green want to be recognized on this bill?
On this one, I'm sorry. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Yes, Council President, can you hear me?
Barely.
Yes, I've been having problems with the sound. How about now? Still a problem?
Yeah, we can hear you, but go ahead. Well, We'll figure it out.
I'll be very brief because I know my sound is off a little bit. I want to thank you, Council President, for giving me the time to make just a quick statement. I want to thank all the members of council that co-sponsored this legislation. As we know, we have a very significant affordable housing problem here in the city of Philadelphia. This body has stepped up and taken leadership in creating a housing trust fund. But we need to make sure that this entity has the resource it needs going forward, and we don't have this issue going forward in reference to providing affordable housing here in the city of Philadelphia. Last year, we had the homeless encampment at Ben Franklin Parkway. We've had a significant issue, I know, in the community that I support very strongly, the disability community. Affordable housing has been a problem for a number of years. And through this legislation and having ongoing conversation with the administration, we hope to move forward this legislation and bring it to the voters so that way we can make sure that the Housing Trust Fund has the resource it needs in order to help to really address the significant affordable housing problem that we have in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. That will be referred to committee.
Councilman Green also offers an ordinance authorizing the city treasurer on behalf of the city to enter into a provider agreement with Citizens Bank of Pennsylvania for provision of payroll banking services to the city.
For the committee.
And an ordinance amending Title 12 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Traffic Code by creating a new Chapter 12-3500 entitled Personal Delivery Devices to regulate the operation of personal delivery devices within the city of Philadelphia in certain circumstances.
For the committee.
And a resolution calling upon the Congress of the United States to enact the Law Enforcement Education and Accountability for People with Disabilities Initiative, bipartisan policing reform bills to address the high incidence rate of violence involving people with disabilities, offered by Senator Bob Casey.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, providing for a mandatory annual appropriation for the Housing Trust Fund and providing for the submission of the proposed amendment to the electors of Philadelphia.
For the committee.
And a resolution calling upon the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to enact Senate Bill 598 to allow political subdivisions to restrict the presence and use of firearms at their properties and facilities.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution honoring the business owners of color receiving Comcast Rise Investment Fund grants and in-kind support and recognizing that businesses owned by people of color are key to equitable growth and recovery in Philadelphia.
Next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Brooks offers a resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly and Governor Tom Wolf to reject House Bill 508, the coerced to work legislation intended to end Pennsylvania's participation in 3 federal pandemic unemployment benefit programs. Council President, Councilwoman Brooks would like to be recognized for a motion on this resolution.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. I move that the rules of council be suspended to permit consideration of this resolution on today's final passage calendar.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly that the rules of council be suspended to allow consideration this week on this resolution. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. The motion passes. Chair.
Okay, Councilman Dom offers one resolution entitled a resolution recognizing the month of May as Celiac Disease Awareness Month in Philadelphia and honoring 8-year-old Philadelphian Jax Barry for shining a national light on ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir on the need for increased federal funding for celiac research and federally mandated labeling of gluten on all packaged foods.
Thank you. That'll be on next week's calendar.
Councilman Thomas offers one resolution on behalf of Council President Clark entitled a resolution honoring and congratulating the Carver Engineering and Science High School boys bowling team on their successful 2020-2021 season and first ever championship win.
Next week's calendar.
Councilman Squilla offers 3 resolutions. On behalf of Council President Clark, Councilman Squilla offers a resolution honoring and recognizing Teresa Elicia on the occasion of her retirement following 25 years of loyal and dedicated service to the residents of the 175th Legislative District.
Next week's calendar.
On his own behalf, Councilman Squilla offers a resolution also naming Bainbridge Street between 8th and 9th Street as Henry L. Phillips Way.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1740 South Howard Street located in the 1st Councilmanic District.
Also on next week's calendar.
Councilwoman Bass offers two bills on behalf of Council President Clark, entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 6200 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Preventative Medicine, by adding a new section offering gift certificates to citizens and property owners of Philadelphia who received vaccinations for COVID-19 in order to incentivize immunizations against the disease. And an ordinance amending Chapter 6200 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Preventative Medicine, by adding a new section offering vouchers for rebates on city gas and water charges to citizens and property owners of Philadelphia who received vaccinations for COVID-19 in order to incentivize immunizations against the disease.
Urban Committee.
Councilman
Hold on. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. President. I just really wanted to say thank you for your vision and forethought and offering these two pieces of legislation. What we're really trying to do here is make sure that we reach out and touch as many people as possible. And if this is an additional incentive that will encourage people to be vaccinated, then I think that we are all for it. So I just wanted to say kudos and thank you very much to you, Council President Clark, and as the Chair of Health and Human Services Committee for City Council. It's really my pleasure to be able to offer this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yeah, these numbers are consistently skewed.
Yes.
People of color not even remotely close to where we need to be. So whatever we have to do to get this last group of people,
Yes.
we need to do it. But thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. There's a lot of work still to be done. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for co-sponsoring it too.
Thank you.
Mr. Decker.
Councilman O offers two resolutions, entitled a resolution commemorating June 19, 2021 as Korean American Citizenship Day to celebrate the first naturalization of a Korean American in 1890. That's next week.
The second one? You want it?
It'll be the second one, Mr. President.
All right. That'll be on next week's calendar.
And a resolution recognizing and celebrating the 2021 Philippine Independence Week celebration from June 5th to June 20th.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. June 5th is right around the corner, so as alerted by my staff. So I'd like to request a suspension of the rules of council to allow consideration of this privilege resolution on today's calendar.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended to allow this resolution to be on today's calendar. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. The resolution will be on today's calendar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered today by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Our next order of business is reports from committee, and the chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a report from the Committee on Rules. Councilman Johnson.
Mr. President, on behalf of Council Member Johnson, the Committee on Rules reports out 5 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Mr. Decker, read the report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Rules, to which is referred Bill number 200713, entitled an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Lehigh Avenue, Frankfurt Avenue, Master Street, and 6th Street. And Bill number 210081, entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 93900 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Property Licenses and Owner Accountability, Section A 906, entitled Property License Fees, Chapter 14604, entitled Accessory Uses and Structures, and Chapter 192400, entitled Hotel Room Rental Tax, to add and revise provisions related to the use of properties for limited lodging and hotel purposes and to the collection of hotel rental taxes in connection therewith. And Bill number 210204, entitled an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cotman Avenue, Milner Street, Princeton Avenue, and the Delaware River. And Bill number 210362, entitled an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, by amending certain provisions of Section 14502, entitled CTR, Center City Overlay District, to create the Mid-Walnut Street area. And Bill number 210425, entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 14500 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Overlay Zoning Districts, by revising certain provisions of Section 14514, entitled FNE Far Northeast Overlay District. Respectfully reports it is considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, on behalf of Councilmember Johnson, I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill numbers 210713, 210081, 210204, 210362, and 210425.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210713, 210081, 210204, 210362, and 210425. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. And these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. The chair now recognizes Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez for a report from Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Appropriations reports one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Mr. Decker, please read the report.
The Committee on Appropriations, to which is referred bill number 210328, entitled an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2021 from the general fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, the grants revenue fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, and the community development fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions. 2, the general fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, and the community development fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions. Respectfully reports it is considered the same and returns the attached bill to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading this day of bill number 210328.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill number 210328. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and this bill will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilman Thomas for a report from the Committee on Streets and Services.
Thank you, Council President. The Committee on Streets and Services reports out 18 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the report.
The Committee on Streets and Services, to which is referred bill number 200627, entitled an ordinance authorizing ARD 1105 Walnut Limited Liability Corporation or a subsequent owner to install, own, and maintain various encroachments at 1101 through 07 Walnut Street. And bill number 210332, entitled an ordinance amending Title 9 of the Philadelphia Code by amending Section 9203 relating to street vendors by prohibiting street vending on certain portions of East Passyunk Avenue and surrounding areas. And bill number 210333, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Greenwood Street and 2nd Street, Reed Street and South 4th Street, William Ensing Avenue, and Wharton Street. And bill number 210334, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Morris Street and South 2nd Street. And bill number 210390, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Dauphin Street and Belgrade Street, Almond Street and Dauphin Street, York Street and Almond Street, Taggart Street and Norris Street, Cedar Street and Norris Street, Marlborough Street and Thompson Street. And Bill number 210391, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Ellsworth Street and South 9th Street, Reed Street and South Broad Street, Mountain Street and South 6th Street, Latona Street and South 7th Street. And Bill number 210392, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Moore Street and South 6th Street, McClellan Street and South 5th Street, Mifflin Street to South 6th Street, South 3rd Street to McKean Street. And Bill number 210393, entitled an ordinance amending section 12701 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled designation of bicycle lanes, to authorize bicycle lanes on Ray Street from North 5th Street to North 4th Street, and making associated changes to parking regulations within the same limits. And Bill number 210394, entitled an ordinance authorizing encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe in the vicinity of 941 South 8th Street. And Bill number 210412, entitled an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of the 6400 block of Summerdale Avenue. And Bill number 210413, entitled an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Glover Avenue between East Upsall Street and East Horter Street. And Bill number 210414, entitled an ordinance establishing a no parking regulation on North 3rd Street, both sides between West Erie Avenue and West Sedgley Avenue. And Bill number 210415, entitled an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on West 64th Avenue, both sides between North Front Street and North 2nd Street. And Bill number 210416, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of North 12th Street and Champlain Street, 69th Avenue and North 12th Street, Camac Street and Champlain Avenue, Park Avenue and Nedrow Avenue, North 13th Street and Olney Avenue. And Bill number 210422, entitled an ordinance regulating the direction of movement of traffic on certain portions of Paul Street, Meadow Street, Tackawanna Street, Worth Street, Pear Street, Gillingham Street, Josephine Street, Blair Street, and East Montgomery Avenue, and making associated changes to parking regulations within the same limits. And Bill number 210423, entitled an ordinance amending section 121133 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled all-terrain vehicles, to address off-road vehicle use in the city of Philadelphia. And Bill number 210447, entitled an ordinance establishing a no truck parking regulation on both sides of Chester Avenue from 66th Street to 67th Street. And Bill number 210448, entitled an ordinance establishing parking regulations on both sides of Webster Street between 20th Street and 21st Street. Respectfully reports that it is considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit the first reading this day of the 18 bills that were just read into record by the clerk.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and probably second that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading this day of the 18 bills that were just read into the record by the clerk. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a report from the Committee on Labor and Civil Service.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Labor and Civil Service reports out 2 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
The Committee on Labor and Civil Service, to which is referred Bill number 210325, entitled an ordinance amending Title 22 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Public Employees Retirement Code, by modifying the circumstances when certain City of Philadelphia employees are entitled to service-connected death benefits during the pandemic. And Bill number 210421, entitled an ordinance amending Section 17107 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Contractors, Labor Management Relationships, to create a new classification of covered airport service employees to receive prevailing wages, to extend prevailing wage requirements to third-party contracts with city-related agencies, lessees, and sublessees of the city, recipients of city financial assistance, and purchasers of city property. To further provide for administration and enforcement, including reporting on contractor compliance with prevailing wage requirements, and to provide for a civil action to remedy violations. Respectfully reports it has considered the same and returns the attached bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill numbers 210325 and 210421.
Second.
Thank you. It's moved and probably second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210325 and 210421. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and these bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gimm.
Yes, Council President. Thank you very much. I have to leave early and would like to be recognized as voting aye on all bills and resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Let the record
Thank
reflect
you.
Councilwoman Gimm voting aye on all bills and resolutions. They shall be granted. Thank you. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Bass for a report from the Committee of Public Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Public Health and Human Services reports one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Mr. Decker, please read that report.
The Committee on Public Health and Human Services, to which is referred Bill number 210364, entitled an ordinance amending various chapters of the Philadelphia Code to address matters related to the availability of feminine hygiene products in city facilities and making certain technical changes. Respectfully reports it has considered and amended the same and returns the attached bill to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bill number 210364.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210364. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and this bill will be placed on our first reading calendar. That concludes our reports from committee, and our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I note that the bills just reported from committee with the suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had a first reading. They will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar in our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on our first reading calendar today, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a motion concerning the resolutions on the final passage calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the use of a consent agenda to consider the following resolutions on the final passage calendars. They are resolution numbers 210485, 210486, 210487, 210488, 210489, 210490, 210491, 210098, 210099, 210100, 210101, 210102, and 210103.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that the rules of council be suspended to permit the use of a consent agenda to consider the resolutions just read by Councilwoman Parker. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries, and we will consider the resolution consent agenda shortly. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker for the purpose of calling up bills and resolutions on the regular second reading final passage calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. In addition to the resolutions being considered on the consent agenda, the following resolutions and bills are being called up from the second reading and final passage calendars today. They are numbers 210492, 210074, and 210331. All other bills and resolutions are being held, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before we consider the calendar today, we will have a public comment session. So we're going to take a couple of minutes to give our technology professionals an opportunity to connect the speakers we have for today's meeting.
Mr. President, council members, and participants, we are now live.
Thank you, and good morning again. We're going to proceed. Now that everyone is connected to the meeting, and before considering the resolutions and bills we have before us today, we will consider public comment. It will go as follows. Public comment must concern matters on the second reading and final passage calendar for possible action at a session of council. A speaker on any of those matters must sign up in order to testify. You must call 215-686-3406 by 3 p.m. the day before the session to sign up for public comment. When you call, we will take your name, phone number, the number of the legislative item you are commenting on, and whether you are in support of or against the legislation, and add your name to the list. We will telephone each person on the list during the council session and invite them to our remote meeting. Under ideal circumstances, they will each have 3 minutes to speak. Today, we actually have ideal circumstances, so we will have 3 minutes to speak. In order to be fair to all those wishing to speak, I intend to hold faithfully to the established time limit. And once invited to the meeting, you are asked to begin your testimony. A timer will be started. We will monitor your remaining time throughout your testimony. And when there are 30 seconds remaining to your time, you will be reminded of this. Once your allotted time is passed, you will be asked to conclude your remarks. Shortly thereafter, you will be muted and disconnected from your remote meeting. I also reserve the right to limit the number of speakers where repetitious comments are being made on the same subject matter, and to limit the scope of testimony to only certain items on the agenda during the public health emergency, which could affect callbacks to the public comment at the meeting. Please be aware that this is a public meeting and it's being recorded. Because the meeting is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. So by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. I will now ask Mr. Decker to please read the first name of our speakers today.
The first speaker for today, Mr. President, is Stephanie Nixon, commenting on 210486.
Good morning. State your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony.
Stephanie Nixon. My name is Stephanie Nixon, and I'm here to comment on resolution number 210486. which honors the life and the legacy of James B. Nixon Jr. and recognizes his impact on the Philadelphia arts and culture community. I want to thank Councilwoman Sherelle Parker for introducing the resolution, and more specifically, I want to thank you, Councilwoman, for the opportunity to be heard, and equally importantly, to be heard publicly. Whereas this resolution gives direct honor to James B. Nixon Jr., the man, his life, and the legacy he left behind, the message I'm delivering this morning is specific in that if someone wants to know how he lived his life, all you have to do is recognize his work. Look at who he supported. Look at the lives he touched, and hear from the artist about the lives he's helped change, because his work speaks for itself. Today, because of Jimmy, there's a renewed and a reinforced foundation in the arts. Therein sits the truth of his accomplishments and his endeavors. It sits within the organizations of both PAFA, the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts, and the Woodmere Art Museum, just to name a few, and also several boards that he sat on. This is a clear message of a great man doing great things. Jim Nixon refused to let his dreams remain dormant or his visions unseen or unfelt. He was action-driven and goal-oriented, and he believed that the only way he could make the world a better place was to do. A little over 15 years ago, he became CEO of Community Health Systems, and he found himself in a position to help young people in need of health care. This was also an opportunity to expand his vision and commitment to culture, local communities, and artists who had dreams, but no pathway to move forward and no pathway for opportunity or success. He discovered that there's a population of people who communicate their language through the arts. They use canvas, paint, chalk, and color to speak, to start a conversation, or even to extend a dialogue. I ask, ultimately, what is the result? What's the end result? the end result is people come together. People from different walks of life come together. Within many cultures, art is a common denominator for communication. He recognized that art influenced culture and culture influenced art, and it has a tremendous capacity. He too recognized that sometimes great pieces of work are much like a time continuum, and great artists are sometimes light years ahead of the present moment. So this morning, on behalf of the Nixon family and friends, I say thank you, Councilwoman Sherelle Parker, for not only hearing Jimmy's message, but for appreciating and embracing Jimmy's heartfelt work to discover and sponsor artists in the many different neighborhoods within our city. May this resolution bring forth to bear the same magnitude of grace and humility as the man we so respectfully honor, James B. Nixon Jr. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The last speaker is Master Robinson, commenting on 210434.
Good morning. Just state your name for the record and please proceed with your testimony.
Good. My name is Master Robinson, also known as Reverend Robinson. I'm here to testify on Resolution 210434, minimum force for law enforcement officers to be trained in. Up to this particular time, all of our training in the police department, especially here in Pennsylvania, has been on a warriorship training. In other words, police officers as warriors and not as guardians. The training they received is authorized by the state of Pennsylvania, and all officers have to take that Act 120 training. But the 120 training really focuses on force, not minimum force, and not de-escalation skills. It's so very important that de-escalation skills, mental health, first aid, and other factors be included into all law enforcement training. Philadelphia is a large metropolitan area. We have universities and institutions here that will supply us instructors and professionals to be able to integrate the top training necessary for law enforcement officers to be trained in. And that is not just going to the range, learning how to shoot, learning how to use your baton and other avenues of defense. We have 7 levels of force, the escalating levels of force, up from 1999 up until today. All of our training has been geared around a Brazilian or an Israeli model of force. And we need to change that into a guardian where we can deal with a community that might be hostile towards police, but police should not be hostile towards them. I support this resolution, whatever is necessary to have that reviewed and be able to implement it. I'm there for it. Thank you very much, Council, for putting this resolution forward, and thank you very much for just making that consideration. Have a great day.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
There are no other speakers, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our public comment session. We will now consider today's resolution consent agenda. I will ask the clerk to please read the titles of all the resolutions on the consent agenda. After each title is read, any member may object to the inclusion of the resolution on the resolution consent agenda. Upon such an objection, without debate, the resolution will be immediately removed from the resolution consent agenda and placed on today's regular final passage calendar. Mr. Decker, please now read the titles of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda.
Resolution number 210485, entitled a resolution recognizing and congratulating Dwayne H. Bum on his retirement and 25 years of distinguished service to the City of Philadelphia Department of Commerce. And resolution number 210486, entitled a resolution honoring the life and legacy of James B. Nixon Jr. and recognizing his impact on the Philadelphia arts and culture community. And resolution number 210487, entitled a resolution confirming the reappointment of Barbara Adams as a member of the Board of the Philadelphia Energy Authority to serve in the term ending January 1, 2025. And resolution number 210488, entitled a resolution confirming the appointment of Natalie Dominguez as a member of the Board of the Philadelphia Energy Authority to serve in the term ending January 1, 2027. And resolution number 210489, entitled a resolution confirming the reappointment of Barbara Moore as a member of the Board of the Philadelphia Energy Authority to serve in the term ending January 1, 2024. And resolution number 210490, entitled a resolution confirming the reappointment of E. Mitchell Swan as a member of the Board of the Philadelphia Energy Authority to serve in the term ending January 1, 2026. And resolution number 210491, entitled a resolution urging support for Pennsylvania House Bills 1204, 1206, 806, and 244, focused on addressing disparities in education, strengthening career and technical education, and creative workforce development opportunities. And resolution number 210098, entitled the resolution appointing Chris Barnes to the Board of Directors for the South Street Head House District. And resolution number 210099, entitled the resolution appointing Katrina Johnston Zimmerman to the Board of Directors for the South Street Head House District. And resolution number 210100, entitled the resolution appointing Adam Zakin to the Board of Directors for the South Street Head House District. And resolution number 210101, entitled the resolution appointing Allison Harvey Hindman to the Board of Directors for the South Street Head House District. And resolution number 210102, entitled the resolution appointing Monica Thompson to the Board of Directors for the South Street Head House District. And resolution number 210103, entitled the resolution appointing Adam Shapiro to the Board of Directors for the South Street Head House District.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for a motion to adopt each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and each of the resolutions on the resolution consent agenda has been adopted. We will now consider the bills and resolutions on the regular second reading and final passage calendar. Mr. Decker, can you please read the title of resolution number 210492?
A resolution supporting the All Faiths Vaccination Campaign's AFVC efforts to achieve vaccination equity by hosting vaccination clinics in Philadelphia's underserved Black and Brown neighborhoods.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to move for this, adopt this resolution, make a motion to adopt this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. It's my honor to say that the resolution has been adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read the title of bill number 210074.
An ordinance repealing Chapter 21-1200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Police Advisory Board and replacing it with a new Chapter 21-1200 that reconstitutes and renames the board as the Citizens Police Oversight Commission and, as authorized by the Charter, provides for the Commission's appointment, the powers and duties of the Commission, and the manner in which the Commission and other officers, employees, and agencies shall fulfill their respective responsibilities with respect to the Commission.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones. Councilman Jones, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me thank you for your steadfast vision about this commission. Many people don't know because you sometimes you run silent and you run deep, but you have been one of the key advocates for this vote today. I want to also say to my colleagues that 2 days ago marked the 1 year anniversary of the death of George Floyd. Since that time, over 3,000 police-related bills, ordinances have been introduced around the country. 30 states have introduced commissions similar in nature to the Citizens Police Oversight Commission. None like this, but similar in its intent. But even with that kind of progress, since George Floyd's murder, over 1,000 people have been killed due to police-involved shootings. 1,000. I want to thank my colleagues in particular. I want to thank Kathy Gilmore Richardson, who has been laser focused on Act 111, because all of these related bills are what the commission will judge the actions of Philadelphia police officers going forward by. I want to thank Member Johnson, who outlawed or had us outlaw the chokehold situation in Philadelphia. Even though our commissioner was on it as well, we thank the administration. I want to thank Member Green and Member Brooks about people with disabilities and how they are treated by the police and interactions there. I want to thank Member Parker for caring about the dispatchers at 911, their training, and how they interact with de-escalation. I want to thank Maria Sanchez for showing us all how to interact with that balance, dealing with her police captains and the needs of her community. I want to thank Member Thomas, who is focused on how young African Americans are stopped and frisked and making sure we don't forget how those interactions happen. I want us to remember that today we have an opportunity to build and launch a ship. But even with the passage of this ordinance, we still have to fuel that ship through properly giving it a budget. We have to find its captain. We have to find its crew so that it can sail beyond our actions here today. I am looking forward to continuing that process. I'm looking forward to the other components that I've mentioned by way of how we have to be focused on other laws, the contract with the FOP, and other things that are related to the successful mission of the commission. There were stakeholders that helped us along the way. Power Live Free was our conscience. The Defenders Association were invaluable in putting together some of the components of how this legislation should be governed. The administration was cooperative, from its police commissioner to its managing director to its mayor, and we thank them. Even the people who have had objections, the communications process, at least, even if we don't agree, we at least understand each other's perspectives from the lenses they see things. And I am thankful for those communications. You thank the Guardians, I thank Noble, I thank the FOP for communicating with us. And I thank my colleagues for being the best colleagues during this point in history to deal with this commission. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Aye.
Councilman Dom.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gautier is voting aye. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gim is voting aye. Councilman Heenan,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Jones,
I would be remiss if I didn't say Samantha Williams. Aye.
Councilman O,
Aye.
Councilman O'Neill,
Nay.
Councilwoman Parker,
Aye.
Councilwoman Guinones Sanchez,
Aye.
Councilman Squilla,
Aye.
Councilman Thomas,
Aye.
Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 16, the nays are 1. Majority of all members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, please read the title of bills number 210331.
An ordinance amending Title VI of the Philadelphia Code, the Health Code, to add a section establishing reporting and employment requirements related to changes in ownership or of the license holder of long-term care facilities and hospitals.
Councilman Thomas, did you want to be recognized on this one?
Yes, Council President, if you don't mind.
Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas. Yeah.
Thank you, Council President. Real briefly, I just want to say thank you, first and foremost, to my colleagues on council for your support throughout the course of this journey as it relates to this particular legislation. Specifically, I want to thank our chair of our committee, our Public Health Committee, and co-sponsor, Councilmember Bass. Also want to thank Council members O'Neill, Heenan, Gaudier, and Brooks, and a special thank you to Councilmember Gilmore Richardson as well as Councilmember Gim for standing with us as we rally around this important issue. The goal here is to put us in a position where when we see certain type of transactions take place, specifically involving our healthcare facilities, is done in a way that's transparent and is done in a way that does not create a ripple effect of problems, similar to what we've seen with the Hahnemann closing for the employees, for the patients and their families, as well as the constituents of Philadelphia. So thank you, Council President, for allowing me to make a brief statement about this bill, and I am excited for our vote today.
Thank you, Councilman. This bill having been read on 2 different days, the question now, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass,
Aye.
Councilwoman Brooks,
Aye.
Councilman Dom,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gautier is voting aye. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilwoman Gim is voting aye. Councilman Heenan,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Jones,
Aye.
Councilman O,
Aye.
Councilman O'Neill,
Aye.
Councilwoman Parker,
Aye.
Councilwoman Guinones Sanchez,
Aye.
Councilman Squilla,
Aye.
Councilman Thomas,
Aye.
Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly and Governor Tom Wolf to reject House Bill 508, the coerced to work legislation intended to end Pennsylvania's participation in 3 federal pandemic unemployment benefit programs, introduced by Councilwoman Brooks.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. I want to say a few words about my resolution urging the Pennsylvania General Assembly and Governor Wolf to reject House Bill 508. This bill, which has been referred to as the coerced to work legislation, would put an end to Pennsylvania's participation in 3 pandemic unemployment benefit programs: the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, and the Pandemic Unemployment Compensation Program. These federal programs have been a lifeline to 1 million Pennsylvanians as they have begun to piece back their lives after trauma and the devastation caused by this pandemic. Eliminating participation in these programs would needlessly throw these families into financial instability and disproportionately impacting gig workers, domestic workers, and self-run business owners who are excluded from the traditional state unemployment programs. Additionally, these benefits are essential to supporting Black and Brown Philadelphians, immigrant communities, and children, all who have suffered severe losses as a result of the pandemic. The myth that unemployment benefits are to blame for perceived labor shortages is not only widely disputed by economists, it reinforces an anti-poor, anti-working class agenda championed by Republicans. We need to work together to build a more just economy and society for all Pennsylvanians, to win a livable minimum wage and fair working conditions for everyone. And preemptively gutting benefits at this time is not only cruel, but will derail an equitable pandemic recovery. I want to thank Councilmember Derek Green for co-introducing this important resolution. And I want to thank the resolution's co-sponsors, Councilmembers Johnson, Gilmore Richardson, Keonan Sanchez, Heenan, Parker, Gim, Gautier, Dom, and Thomas. Thank you so much, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman. It's been moved and probably second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. And that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and celebrating the 2021 Philippine Independence Week celebration from June 5th to June 20th, introduced by Councilman O.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any speeches on, prior to recognizing members regarding speeches, I will note for the record, this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this particular purpose. With that said, are there any speeches on behalf of the minority? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. I'd like to extend the invitation to all my colleagues and their staff, if anyone is interested, to take me up in an offer to come by my jiu-jitsu school. I don't own it. I'm saying the one I train at. Come on by next week, something like that. I will not say who it is, but I do have someone who is coming to just take a look at the training and take a look, a little bit of learning about what submissions are, how they work, what defensive moves there are, techniques, and how to gently control someone at minimum risk to them and to you. How that's done so that even a person of my age, out of shape like I am, can control someone. I want to also say that people who are untrained, it doesn't matter what they're untrained in, they don't know what they're doing. People who are trained know what they're doing. People who are untrained tend to use brute force to the maximum degree. People who are trained to use brute force or who are trained to confront someone who is bigger and stronger, trained to control that person with maximum force. And if someone is training to take down someone who is 6'5", 280 pounds, that's how they take someone down who is 5'2" and 110 pounds if they are not trained, if they don't understand the damage they could do the harm they could do. Police officers have guns. They are authorized to use deadly force, and they are trained to some extent to try to control people, but too often it is with brute force, usually multiple officers. And that's not what they want. Many times it's not what we want. It's not what the person wants who is being the target of that. But whose fault is it if they are not trained? I would say it's the employer's fault. The employer has to provide the training and the resources, the mentality and the skills to have the confidence to do the job properly. I'm going to share a story that I thought of. It may seem a little removed, but I'm going to share it anyway. When I was in the military, we were going to go through the bayonet course. It was cold, and there was a delay. And in the Army, it's always hurry up and wait. But this time, what they explained to us, there had been an accident the prior day. We had some second lieutenants out of ROTC going through the bayonet, and the bayonet course consists of navigating barbed wire with an M16 with a bayonet on the end of it. And how you're trained in the military is that when you fall, you break your fall with the butt of your rifle. You roll so that where you fell is not where you rise, so nobody shoots you. You roll, you point, you fire. That's what they're told. That's what they're trained to do. They don't have extensive training. They have some training. The day before, a young lieutenant, college kid, was going through the course, and they told him, when you fall, do not break your fall with the butt of your weapon. Throw your M16 away. That's an instruction. Call it a directive. He fell, and automatically, muscle memory, instinctively, he broke his fall with the butt of his weapon, and the bayonet went through his face, and he died. I'm saying instruction is one thing, training is another thing. You have to provide instruction directives with the appropriate level of training, with enough repetition and thoughtfulness that training is meaningful. If we really want to change the outcomes, in addition to the good things, this council, one of the obvious things we have to do is invest in training officers don't want. This is training officers want. We have to make it convenient for them. We have to make it available to them. We have to give them options and choices. That's what the resolution is for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Speeches on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to give my colleagues a heads up. I'm gonna be a little long-winded today. I don't normally do this, but I'm not even gonna have a lot of energy. I actually got my second vaccination today, and I want to encourage all Philadelphians to get vaccinated. I know there are a lot of folks who look like me that are a little worried about it, so I've tried my best to communicate publicly my entire journey as it relates to being reluctant as well as getting vaccinated. So I feel great. My shoulder is a little sore, so that impacted the sleeping, along with this 7-month-old guy kicking me all night. So, please, Philadelphia, get vaccinated. That's first and foremost. Outside of that, I just want to take a moment to congratulate my colleague, Councilmember Jones. The bill that we voted on today, I feel like my bill was significant, absolutely, but I think Councilmember Jones's bill today is historic in nature. And I think people all across the Commonwealth and all across the country, honestly, are looking at Philadelphia as an example. And Councilmember Jones talked about a lot of things that other council members are working on as it relates to this issue of communities of color and policing. But another issue that I know Councilmember Jones cares about, because I've been working with him on this, is this issue of our Black-led institutions. And my colleague and I signed up to testify last week at the school board hearing, only to find out that the school board hearing was not made open to the public. There were some technical issues that I'm not quite sure how it was legal for the meeting to continue to happen. People could only listen via Zoom. And so for the significance of what we had to talk about, I could not communicate my comments there. So I am going to communicate them here today. Most of my colleagues on council know me, but for those who are not familiar with my background, I'm a public school grad. I went to our schools. I care deeply about our schools, but I've also worked in African-centered led charter schools. And I can tell you that there's a distinct difference, having being someone who attended public schools. My father's a retired teacher, and I taught in public schools, between what goes on in African-centered schools and any other type of institution. And I'm not going to get too much into that stuff today because I think I've done that enough in a number of different council sessions. But what I am going to get to today is some of the activity that's been taking place as it relates to how these institutions have been treated. Myself and Councilmember Jones, we've held multiple meetings and dialogues, not just with the institutions, but with members of the school board as well as members of the school district. And at one point, I thought we were actually making some progress. And unfortunately, after our meeting on April 13th, April 14th, the school board decided to randomly add to the agenda to vote no on two more Black-led institutions. They added to the agenda to take a vote on two more Black-led institutions that they eventually voted to close. And again, this was done immediately after our meeting where we communicated what we felt like was examples of institutional racism as it relates to how these schools had been treated. And it didn't stop there, unfortunately. We had dialogue around an independent review, and it was agreed upon that the independent review process will be a process that will be a collective decision. I want to commend Councilmember Johnson on his work with First Judicial District, and as that is a great example of how we were able to have a credible organization produce an independent review. And one of the things that was asked of the school board of the city of Philadelphia was to have some level of participation so we can assure that whoever is selected to do this independent review that unfortunately is going to take 2 years, and I'll get into that in a minute, will be somebody that is a neutral party. And I am here to complain about the fact that since our meeting, we unfortunately have not heard from anyone as it relates to what this process is going to consist of. So at this point, I'm extremely frustrated. I understand the concerns of the citizens of Philadelphia who talk about the difficulties they have with the school board and how it is not easy to have the level of transparency that's needed as it relates to decisions, as it relates to people being able to testify and other issues that's been communicated to this council body. This is the same school board who came again to this council body and asked us to expedite our vote, to move forward in an efficient way to try to get these school board members in place so that they can take care of what they called urgent business. Come to find out, the urgent business is closing more Black-led institutions. Now, we have to talk about this issue with the surrender clause because we have raised the concern around the surrender clause. We have raised concerns around the legality of the surrender clause and how this is, again, another tool that has only been used for Black-led institutions. So I'm frustrated at this point. I don't know what direction to go in, but what I will do is this, and I'll close out here. One of my mentors served as a school board member at one point, Amin Akbar, and Amin Akbar was at one point my basketball coach, and he gave me my first coaching job at Penn State Abington. And I vividly remember that Amin missed a game, and the game he missed was my first time coaching college basketball. And unfortunately, it was a away game, and some of the guys decided to play a prank on the other team, and they decided to steal some things from that other school on my watch. Clearly, they got away with it because they essentially did it again, and eventually, Coach Amin found out what they did. And Coach Amin gave the team a speech that I would never forget for the rest of my life. And in the speech, what he asked the players to do was to treat him like an old white man. Was he saying those players were racist? Absolutely not. But what he recognized was that these folks, for the first time, and you could put me on that list, has seen a young black man in power who was running his ship the right way. And so what I'm asking the school board today, again, to treat these black institutions similar to what Coach Amin talked about as it relates to how the white institutions are treated. Councilmember Jones talked earlier when we were in the meeting about comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And what we've seen, while they are our fruit, it is not fair how we are seeing how they're disproportionately treated. So we are extremely frustrated with the school board as it relates to the School District of Philadelphia and their governance. And I am asking my council colleagues to begin to brainstorm with me and other leaders across the city of Philadelphia what we need to do about the governance of our schools. Because 170,000 citizens voted for me. I've taught in these schools. I was raised in these schools. My family is invested in these schools. And even with my seat on city council, I clearly have no ability to communicate injustices and to have any level of advocacy, effective advocacy, for those who I know that are at a disadvantage. So, colleagues, you will be hearing from me as it relates to the direction that we should go in. But what's happening right now is alarming, it's criminal, and this council body will not stand for it. Thank you, Council President, for allowing me a little more leeway than what I would normally take, because this is an important issue. And thank you, council colleagues, for your patience today. And you will hear from me moving forward as it relates to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I wanted to thank my colleague, Councilmember Thomas, for his impassioned speech, and also congratulate my district council member and colleague, Councilmember Jones, on the passage of the legislation around the police commission. Just thank you for your work, all the hard work and research that you put into this, and for allowing us to be a part of this process with you, and especially to Winfield native Samantha Williams for all of the work that she put into this process. But today, Mr. President, I introduced a bill reforming our minor curfew law. First, I wanted to thank my colleagues who co-sponsored the bill, council members Johnson, Parker, Quinona Sanchez, Brooks, Dom, Gim, Bass, and Thomas, and especially thank my colleague, Councilmember Johnson, for all of his help and support through all of the meetings we have had recently with the administration, and to Councilmember Gim in her absence for hosting conversations with young people around the supports they need and want to see from the city of Philadelphia. The bill introduced today simplifies the curfew times to make them easier to understand. Currently, we have a model with different times from school year versus summer, weekday versus weekend. And the last bill, the last time the curfew bill was worked on in council, and I was a legislative aide back then for our former council member Blondell Reynolds Brown, that bill had a sunset provision. This bill also removes punitive fines and changes the requirements regarding where the young people will be taken when they are picked up. I've been working closely with the Office of Children and Families, the Department of Human Services, and the Philadelphia Police Department to reform our current curfew bill and establish evening resource centers and a network of safe spaces where minors who violate curfew can be taken to be connected to support services. And I don't want to at all negate the work that was done under the previous administration, our former mayor, John F. Street, for really being a visionary around this work. Young people are being caught up in gun violence and other dangerous activity far too often, and we need to create the systems to intervene and provide resources earlier. I also want to thank Parks and Rec for making the commitment to keep the recreation centers open until 9 o'clock. And I look forward to working with you around potential conflict mediators at our parks and rec sites. Mr. President, reforming the curfew law by simplifying the times, removing the fines, and connecting young people and families to social services will help us keep more kids safe and address the potential underlying challenges that often lead to young people being out late. Often young people get caught up in dangerous situations simply because they are out too late. Through this model, we are working to reform the systems that lead to juvenile justice involvement or criminal activity. And this bill and the new Evening Resource Center model will help us connect more children and families to resources earlier and keep them off the street. I also want to thank Deputy Mayor Cynthia Figueroa, Commissioner Kimberly Ali from the Department of Human Services, and Deputy Commissioner Joel Dales for their partnership to quickly establish these centers. And I look forward to our continued work together to support youth and young people and to work on this bill and get this finished before the end of this session. Thank you very, very much, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to give, a shout out to my colleagues, Gilmore, Richardson, Jones, and Thomas, for their fantastic work that they've been doing. Congratulations, Councilman Jones, on the passage of your legislation, which I think is a game changer here in the city of Philadelphia. So I'm really excited for that and for the other work that's being done by my colleagues as well. I wanted to just briefly mention three things today. The first is that Representative Chris Rabb, I just found on Instagram, is having the Black Mother Racial Disparities in Healthcare conference today at 1 o'clock. You can get more information on that by going to www.reprab.com, click on special event, and they're going to be discussing why there are healthcare disparities in the Black community, especially among seniors and pregnant women. And as a woman in the city who was pregnant and who had complications from that pregnancy, I'd love to compare myself to celebrities like Beyonce and Serena Williams. But the one thing that we have in common was a difficult pregnancy with preeclampsia. And so, addressing these issues is just critically important for the safety of mothers and children in the city of Philadelphia. And as a chair of Health and Human Services, I really want to encourage everyone to go again to www.reprab and get more information. Check it out. It's today at 1 o'clock, so it'll be held shortly. The second thing I wanted to mention just briefly is the passing of Miss Jessie Lee Coleman, who was the former spouse of Council President and member Joe Coleman, longtime member and Council President. And I knew her. I didn't know her well, but I had an opportunity to meet her, and I have to say that she was a class act all the way. And, just from my brief interactions with her, you could tell that she was somebody really special. The papers, there was an obituary in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and it described her as the First Lady of City Council. I would actually say she was the First Lady of all of Philadelphia. And I'm wondering if we could just take a moment of silence and recognition and remembrance of this very fine, very classy, wonderful person who cared so deeply about the city of Philadelphia.
Moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. And last but not least, I did want to speak about a letter I sent to the mayor earlier this week regarding Dr. Ayla Stanford and the need for a health commissioner here in the city of Philadelphia. As the chair of Health and Human Services, I speak today and again recommend and support Dr. Ayla Stanford, the founder of the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, to be the next health commissioner for the city of Philadelphia. And while the whole world was watching reports on local and national news about African Americans and Hispanics in the city of Philadelphia being underserved with COVID testing access to COVID vaccines, and access to good health in general, Dr. Ayla Stanford really stood up for us in a significant way. Dr. Stanford is a physician and very experienced physician. She has an impeccable record of delivering patient care and with distinctive specialty qualifications in caring for both children and adults while being double boarded and certified by the American Board of Surgery in both general adult and pediatric general and thoracic surgery. Dr. Stanford launched the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium in direct response to the need she heard from Black residents in Philadelphia, her hometown. She made herself available to be a regular guest on local television and radio. And so she wanted to keep people informed. And so she stood up for us, and I say we should stand up for her. The World Watch, as Dr. Stanford gathered together Black doctors, nurses, and community members to volunteer their time as she used her own money and donations from organizations to sustain the movement while churches, mosques, and community centers opened their doors as testing and vaccine sites. So we all stood up again together. The Black Doctors Consortium has been touted as a national model for decreasing healthcare inequities and assessing underserved communities. They have vaccinated over 43,000 individuals, with 86% of them coming from communities of color. Of this 86%, 78% were individual Black Philadelphians. The World Watch, as Dr. Stanford received the TV1 and Clio TV Health Equity Advancement Award, sponsored by Amazon. She was named 6 ABC Black History Month honoree, and she received the late Harris Wofford Award by Mayor Kinney, who stood up and said, Dr. Stanford is a real hero, and she saved many lives during the pandemic. And so we call on our mayor to go back to those words and to put those words into motion by naming Dr. Ayla Stanford Health Commissioner for the City of Philadelphia. If we are truly serious about addressing health disparities, then this is really what must be done. And so I want to thank all of my colleagues who have signed on to this letter and in support of this effort. I apologize, but I don't have everyone's name in front of me, but I know that very much a significant portion of the council has stood by and is in support of Dr. Stanford receiving this appointment. So we call on Mayor Kinney to do the right thing, in our opinion, and to appoint Dr. Ayla Stanford as Health Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Mr. President, you gave me, well, let me take this opportunity, Mr. President, to amen what Member Thomas talked about. I would briefly just say that I've been in council now entering my 14th year. There was a child that went to public school that wound up miseducated and is in an adult penal institution today. There are more young people in certain zip codes in my district up on State Road in prison than in the local high school Overbrook. The miseducation of our children and limiting our options for our children is a civil rights issue. And I intend to be focused, along with Member Thomas and members of the Education Committee and my colleagues, to rectify this issue. Because I think, other than family supports around our children, other than, as you fight for, Mr. President, job opportunities for at-risk individuals in our poor communities fighting poverty, education is the great equalizer, as President Obama said, that can transcend all of the other ills by providing opportunities to our kids. And we're not going to let go of this issue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. I don't see any other members or speeches for the majority. With that being the case, I'm now going to recognize Councilman Jones for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, June 10th, at 2021 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and probably second. The council stand adjourned until Thursday, June 10th, 2021, 10 a.m. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. And again, be safe. Thank you. Talk to you later.